Om Vakrudunda Mahakaya
सूर्यकोटि
Surya
समप्रभ
Samapprabha
निर्विघ्नं
Nirvignam
कुरु
Kuru
मे
Me
देव
Deva
सर्वकार्येषु
Sarvakaryeshu
सर्वदा
Sarvada
सरस्वती
Saraswati
नमस्तुभ्यं
Namastubhyam
वरदे
Varade
कामरूपिणि
Kamarupini
विद्यारम्भं
Vidyarambham
करिष्यामि
Karishyami
सिद्धिर्भवतु
Siddhir Bhavatu
सदा
Me Sada Guru
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा
Brahma Guru
गुरुर्विष्णुः
Vishnu
गुरुदेवो
Gurudevo
महेश्वरः
Maheshwaraha
गुरु
Guru
साक्षात्
Sakshat Param
परब्रह्म
Brahma
तस्मै
Tasmai
श्री
Shri
गुरवे
Gurave
नमः।
Namaha
ॐ
Om
सहनावतु
Sahana Bhavatu
सहनो भुनक्तु
Sahano Bhunaktu
सह वीर्यं
Sahaviryam
करवावहै
Karavabahe
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
Yajasvidhamavithit
विद्विषावहै।
Vishavahe
ॐ शान्ति
Shanta Shanta
शान्ति।
Shanti Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha
ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः।
अथ चतुर्थोऽध्यायः
अथ चतुर्थोऽध्यायः
श्रीभगवानुवाच
श्रीभगवानुवाच
श्लोक नंबर 18 कर्मण्यः कर्म यः पश्येत्
कर्मण्यकर्म यः पश्येत्
अकर्मणि च कर्म यः
अकर्मणि च कर्म यः
स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु
स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु
स युक्तः कृत्स्नकर्मकृत्
स युक्तः कृत्स्नकर्मकृत्।
Important shloka, very important shloka. We are reading the last 3 days. Now we will read from here. Inaction. Inaction is not the absence of action. That is why akarmani karma yaha pakshet. So when ahankara is there, even though the person is not acting, physically acting, but kartrutvam is there, therefore is the karta only. Therefore is acting. It is not the absence of action. One who is krista karma krita, who has done everything that has to be done. Krista karma krita is refers to the person who sees very clearly that there is no action whatsoever in action. Karmani akarma darshanam. Kartrutva abhava. Kartrutva not there. For karmani akarma darshanam. And there is action in inaction. Akarmani karma darshanam. That's what Shloka says. Karmanya karma. Karmanya mayas pashyad akarmani cha karmayaha. So akarmani karma darshanam. Karmani akarma darshanam. In his understanding, inaction, akarma, the so-called absence of action, na karma akarma, is converted into action because of the presence of karta. Kartrutva, abhimana is ahankara is therefore. So, because the karta is present, ahankara is present, therefore, akarmani karma pashyati, krishna karma krita. The person sees, is a jnani, he has clear vision about what karma is. Even though the person doesn't act, a person doesn't act, but he sees karma in that person because kartrutva is there in that person. The one who says I perform this action, the same one who says I don't perform this action. So therefore, performance of action physically doesn't count. Kartrutvam is there or not, that matters. So jnani who understands this, he is a Krishna karma krita jnani. He has this vision, knowledge. To say I do not perform this action doesn't mean there is no action because this particular inactivity is dependent upon, or it is centered on the karta, the doer. Kartrutva is the notion. I am the doer. That is kartrutva abhimana. Aham karta. Aham karta. Because this notion is there, the person says, I do not perform this action now, which doesn't mean that he or she doesn't perform any action at all. While the person may not perform certain actions, he or she continues to perform some action or the other. No one can remain without performing any karma, even for a second. As we saw in the third chapter, therefore, it is impossible for anyone to say, I am not doing any action, because nahi kaschit kshanamapi, the footnote is given. That is the third chapter, fifth shloka. Jatu, ever. No one can ever remain quiet without doing karma. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krite karyate hyavashak karma sarva prakriti jair gunagi, because of the guna, which is prakriti, born of prakriti, propelled by the guna, he will be made to, forced to act. Therefore, nobody can remain quiet even for a moment. Even making such a statement is active, because the speaking is an action. I don't perform any karma if a person says. That is itself an action. Even if the person doesn't do, but the person speaks, he says, I don't perform action. Speaking is an action. A person who says, I perform no action at all, I'm keeping quiet, is performing the action of speaking. Physically, he may keep quiet. He may think and he speaks. All these are not actions. They are also actions only. Therefore, vachika karma only. Thinking is that. Therefore, manasa karma is that. So, karma is that. So, therefore, maybe physically I'm not doing anything, but I perform verbal action, I perform mental action. Mentally, so many thoughts in the mind goes. So many thoughts arise in the mind of the person, arises and resolves. Therefore, there is no such thing as inaction in the sense of a total absence of activity. When Krishna says that the wise person is able to see action in inaction, it means that the person doesn't see inaction as an absence of action. That is the meaning. Akarma means not that absence of action. Akarma means the person doesn't see inaction as absence of action. You see action in that inaction. He's able to see action in inaction, meaning doesn't see inaction as absence of action. The person is acting. The person performs activity. May not be the physical karma, but manasam karma, vachi karma, all these are actions only. But what the person is able to see in action is freedom from action, not the absence of action. In the absence of action, there is action. Even in that action, the wise person called Buddhiman is able to see a freedom from action. That's another second point. The Buddhiman has a wisdom, the Buddhi, that enables him or her to see inaction in action. He himself is the example for that. Because the person sees Atma as a karta. He performs karma, but at the same time, inaction. How? Because kartrutva, abhimana not there, agankara not there. He sees Atma. Atma is a karta. Aham Atma. Abhimana with Atma only, not with agankara. Therefore, inaction in action. Action in inaction. Inaction in action. Thus, there is a recognition of the fact that self is not an actor in any way whatsoever. The point is, Atma na karta, agankaraha akarta na bhavati. Atma karta na bhavati, agankaraha akarta na bhavati. That is the meaning. Karmani akarmaya pashyet. That is, Atma is akarta. Atma akarta, always akarta, and cannot do karma. Therefore, akarma, he sees the buddhima, the jnani, he sees inaction. Akarmani cha karma pashyet. When the person is not acting akarmani, that is agankara. In the agankara, karma pashyet. Ahankara is a kartrut abhimana is a, even though the person is not acting, the buddhiman is his karma in that. That is the meaning. So, kartrutva abhimana, presence or absence of kartrutva abhimana determines the presence of action or absence of action. Kartrutvam or akartrutvam. Karta, akarta, karta. Iti. Thus, there is a recognition of the fact that the self is not an actor in any way whatsoever. The self doesn't perform any action, and in its presence, all activities take place. The original sin, what is the original sin? It is not the sin committed by the Adam and Eve. The original sin is ajnana. Ajnanam is the original sin. If at all there is sin, we don't use the word sin. Ajnanam is a sin, papa. So ajnanam, the ignorance. That is the original. Original meaning moola. Moola. Ajnana is the moola for samsara. The problem here is that all actions are centered on the karta only, the actor. Only when karta is there is possibility of action. Therefore, all actions emanate from the karta alone, which is not separate from aham, I, the atma. The problem comes because a person thinks he or she is a karta. This thinking, this particular notion is the only evil there is. Somebody doesn't use the word evil. Anyway, here within quote. If there is such a thing as original sin, it is only in thinking that oneself is a karta. That is the wrong notion. The ajnanam is the original sin. If at all there is an original sin, because from this only all problems arise. This is a root cause of samsara. Agam karta is a notion. I am the karta is a notion, and it is this notion that binds a person to karma. Why? Because the one who is the enjoyer of the result of action is the one who performed the action. Who can be a bhukta? Yaha karta, saha bhukta bhavati. Karta eva bhukta bhavati. Yatra yatra kartrutvam tatra tatra bhuktrutvam. Yaha karta bhavati, saha bhukta bhavati. When I perform an action, a result accrues. And this result accrues to me because I am the karta. Result accrues to me, the karta alone. In this way, I am bound by the results of my actions, and thus by the actions themselves. Even a person who makes money and distributes it to all others, leaving none for himself or herself, he is also performing karma only. He accrues the result of a good action. It is a punya karma. He is distributing, reaching out action. Karma pala is the punyam will be there for the person. He is karta, therefore, is a bhukta. Punya palam will be accrued to his account. People rightly exalt such a person because which is a karma pala that belongs only to the person who distributed the money. But the person is still as a karta to whom the karma pala accrues, because of which he or she is also an enjoyer. Samsara, the orbit of action and result. Karma and its result, karma pala, are the cause for samsara. They account for all of one's problems. The results of karma in the form of papa and punya, according to this model, account for one's incarnation, one's punarjanma, reincarnation, punarjanma. Punya papa is therefore punarjanma. This punya papa cannot be exhausted by any amount of janma. The more and more in janma you take, the more and more karma pala will be added. Therefore, there can never be the exhaustion of this punya papa. We have seen that karma is born out of desire. What is the cause of karma? Desire. Desire is the root cause. Kama yeshaha, krodha yeshaha, rajoguna samudbhavaha. So karma, the anichana pivashneya, baladiva niyojitaha, we have seen karma propels a person to engage in, the desire propels a person to engage in karma. So therefore, desire is the root cause, kama. And is therefore nothing but an expression of desire, the form of likes and dislikes, raga dveshas. Although samsara is accounted for by karma pala itself is possible because there is karma, which in turn is possible because there is kama. Therefore, we say kama karma, avidya kama karma. Avidya, because of avidya, there is karma, because of karma, there is karma, because of karma, there is karma pala, the form of papa punya, therefore punarjanma, that is what samsara is. And for whom is the karma? The karta. Therefore, karta is the cause for all the karmas and karma pala. And the desire lies in the karta. The karta is the locus of desire. So he only entertains the desires and therefore performs karma to fulfill the desires. Karta performs karma, wanted to be a bhokta, karma pala bhokta. So karma invites punya papa, drishtapalam, adrishtapalam, punya papa, and the fourth, samsara. The kartrutvam, kartrutvam because of ajnana. Atma is not the karta, and kartrutvam is there. That is ahankara, that is ajnana. Atma, which is akarta, can never be karta, cannot do karma, is taken to be karta. I perform iti. And that is because of ajnana. Therefore, because of ignorance, one takes oneself to be a karta. One takes oneself to be karta, meaning one takes atma to be the karta. Atma to be the karta. Akartra atma is taken to be karta. That is because of ajnanam. So ajnanam is a cause. And once kartra abhimana is there, then icha drives a person to do karma and karma pala. Therefore, the cycle. The problem here is that if you are really a karta, there's a contention. If you are really a karta, you have no way of getting out of samsara. If you are really a karta and the kartrutvam is there all the time, then you can never get out of kartrutvam and therefore samsara. You cannot give up kartrutvam because it becomes your swarupa then. You are in its orbit, the orbit of action and its result, karma chakra. Because of karma pala, there is birth, janma, and because of birth, there is karma to perform. If one is able to gain a human body or its equivalent, that's another important condition. The human shariram is required to perform karma because other sharirams do not enjoy the privilege of performing karma. That is, other beings do not enjoy this privilege of kartrutvam, vimana, don't have free will, therefore cannot become karta. They are just bhokta. All animals and other beings are, they are just bhokta. They are enjoyers. Their body is meant for enjoying the results, not for performing new karma and accruing punya papa, new karma pala. Only through Manisha Sharira only punya papa can be, new punya papa can be gained and old punya papa can be exhausted. The old punya papa, of course, can be exhausted. The exhaustion is possible through any Sharira. But earning new punya papa is possible only through human Sharira. Therefore, only to gain a human body or its equivalent. In fact, it is human body, Manisha Sharira. Then you perform new karmas and gather more karma pala, thereby perpetuating the cycle, samsara chakra. Because of karma, there is karma pala. Because of karma pala, there is janma. Because of janma, again, there is karma. Because of karma, there is karma pala. This is a cycle, in orbit. You will continue to be in as long as you take yourself to be the karta. So, if you want to come out from this orbit, kartrutvam has to go. The notion of that itself is a notion. It is not the fact. It's a notion. The notional kartrutvam can go only by knowledge. There is no way of getting out of this wheel of samsara, the samsara chakra, unless you get out of the orbit of karma, karma pala, janma, karma. But how do you get out? The only way is to nullify the kartrutva, doership. If the doership is real, you will not be able to nullify it, because anything real cannot be nullified. By the same reasoning, if doership can be nullified, then it is not real. Doership can be nullified. How? By jnana. Therefore, one can get out of this orbit of this chakra, karma chakra, by understanding that Atma, Aham Atma, Akarta iti. Therefore, doership is not real. It is adhyastam, superimposed on Atma. How to get out of this orbit of samsara? There is an argument that suggests that performing only good karmas, There are people who argue like this. Even I have seen performing only good karmas, a person will be liberated from samsara. This doesn't happen. This cannot be true. By performing only good karma, you will earn lot of punyas. You will be punyavan. Punyam also, like papam, it also accounts for samsara, bondage. One is a gold chain, other one is iron chain. Both are chains. If papam can be compared to iron chain, punyam compared to gold chain. Chain being a chain, it binds up the jiva. Because it is gold, you cannot, there is no value added in terms of your liberty. You are bound. So you remain bound, continue to be bound. Chain is a chain. So therefore, performing only good karma, earning punya, and cannot be liberated from samsara. To perform only good karmas means that all the actions done by the person have to be good. There will be no wrong actions at all. So that itself is not possible. This is not possible at all, as we shall see later. A person performing only good karma, not there. Because he has to survive, he has to kill some beings, some unknown beings, invisible beings. Even when he breathes, some microbes, some microorganisms are killed. When he walks, some ants, etc., they are killed unknowingly, not deliberately, but he only tramples on them, knowingly or unknowingly. Therefore, not that a person will be performing only good karma. It is not possible. Survival is not possible. That's why this is not possible at all. A person doing only good actions, suppose a person doing only good karma, he will gain only punyam. But gaining any amount of punyam will not release the person from this cycle. Punyam being karma pala, the person with a lot of punya will have a lot of birds and maybe a lot of what we call comforts. You may be born in a good family, affluent family, enjoy all the comforts because punyam is there. And the tendency of the person who has more and more comforts in the form of securities and money, power, for example, what he will do is eventually turn towards wrong actions. More power, more money, and power is there. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So naturally, he will be, if he's not ethical, he will be inclined towards doing wrong actions. The more money a person gathers, what happens? The more power he or she may have, and power tends to corrupt the person who has it. And if by having gathered so much money, a person could conceivably gain absolute power, then the person may become absolutely corrupt. This absolute corruption will then result in the accrual, collection of papa, for which more births have to be gained. Furthermore, it is impossible for a person to perform only good actions. Punya karma, not possible at all. No one can avoid doing papa karma at some time or the other. All it takes is one unconscious swatting of a mosquito. Papam. Unknowingly, you are destroying millions of bacteria every day. Not are all varieties of papa karma known to you. Some are unknown. Therefore, you cannot avoid doing papa karma altogether. You cannot survive without doing imsa. That imsa is allowed imsa, a little imsa, unavoidable imsa. You don't deliberately kill beings, but unavoidable. Like the bacteria are killed. So millions of bacteria are there in the stomach. They are there in the air. We breathe. So they are killed. Even if you do nothing but punya karma, you would not get out of the orbit of samsara. Why? Because karma itself keeps samsara going. Only when the karta is not there, will there be absence of karma for you. If the karta is a reality, then karma will definitely be there, be it punyam or papam. Therefore, but the karta is not absolutely real. If karta is really real, then samsara is a reality. But karta is not absolutely real. It is only a superimposition, adhyasta, adhyaropitaman, upon atma, which is absolutely real. So what is really real is atma. Therefore, That karta is not really real, absolutely real. This means while the karta, the doer is aham, I, atma is not the doer. This being so, kartrutva, the doership becomes mithya. Aham karta. The karta is atma, but atma is not the karta. Therefore, kartrutvam is mithya. Something that has no independent existence. That is what mithya is. It depends upon I, whereas I, the atma, doesn't depend on karta, doesn't depend on kartrutvam. It is satya atma. Satya atma doesn't depend on mithya ahankara, whereas mithya ahankara doesn't sustain without satya atma. Therefore, this kartrutvam is unreal. Ahankara is unreal. The definition of mithya and satya. Anything that doesn't exist on its own. This definition already we have seen. Asato vidyate bhavaha, that we have seen. Again, it is explained. Anything that doesn't exist on its own, anything that depends for its existence upon something else, anything that draws flesh and blood from something else for it to exist is called mithya. So mithya is that which doesn't have independent existence. That which doesn't depend upon anything else in order to exist is satya. So satya is that which independently exists. Mithya is that which cannot exist independently. Without satya, there is no mithya. Without mithya, satya is. In terms of reality, then a shirt becomes mithya, and the cloth is made of the cloth it is made of becomes satya. So cloth is satyam, shirt is mithya, and the cloth itself becomes mithya, and the yarn that makes up the cloth becomes satya. And the yarn becomes mithya, and its fibers become satya. The fibers become satya, and the particle that makes up the fibers become satya. The particles become mithya, and the concept becomes satya. The concept becomes mithya and atma. If you further go on like this, then finally you arrive at atma. Atma becomes satya. Finally, you have to arrive at a concept because you cannot, after particles further, you cannot even conceive of. Therefore, there's only a concept, the conceptual level. That concept also becomes mithya, and what is there is only satya atma. And at this point, a question may arise: is if atma becomes mithya, this question is not valid because this entire inquiry is possible because there is a satya atma. There is an atma which is satya. That which is not negatable. The non-negatable satyam is therefore only that such. We can that such the discussion is possible, inquiry is possible. Therefore, Satya Atma is all the way Satya, all the way it is there. Satya Atma is there, therefore concept is Satya Atma is there, therefore particles are Satya Atma is there, therefore fibers are Satya Atma is there, therefore yarn is Satya Atma is there, therefore cloth is Satya Atma is there, therefore shirt is. So it is all the way Satya Atma is there. So therefore, in the shirt there is Satya Atma, the cloth there is Satya Atma, the yarn that is Satya Atma, and the fiber that is Satya Atma, and the particle and in the concept is Satya Atma. So the shirt, cloth, yarn, fiber, particles, the concept, these can be dismissed, but what cannot be dismissed, what is negative, unnegatable is the Satya Atma. This is called neti process. Na iti, na iti. Therefore, I am neither the doer nor enjoy because aham satya atma, therefore aham na karta, na bhokta. Consciousness, now that exists, it is self-evident, therefore it is chit, it is exists as I am asmi. Therefore that consciousness that is self-evident, which doesn't need to be revealed by anything else is atma, the self. The self alone is self-evident. And everything else evident because of this self. Everything is evident to the Atma, and Atma is not the Karta. The Karta is something that comes and goes. For instance, there is no Kartatva, no doership in deep sleep. Sushupti avastayam, Kartatvam nasti, because the mind is the dormant state, so Ahankara is not there, Kartatvam not there. Since I am always there, self-evident, If I am the karta should not come and go. But in the deep sleep, it is not there. I should always be the karta. Should be available in all the three states, but it is not so. And if I am an enjoyer, bhokta, I should always be a bhokta. That is also not so. Sometimes I am karta, sometimes I am bhokta. This means I am neither karta nor bhokta. Karta appears with the mind, the antakaranam is there. Doership kartrutva means the status of being the subject with reference to any type of activity, whether it is mental activity like perception, inference, and thinking, or physical activity. The doership is with reference to any action. Karma is a therefore kartrutva. Karma could be anything, physical, mental, whatever, maybe the action. Vachika, Kaika, and Manasa karma. For any type of activity, a subject is always necessary. And this subject is called the ego or the agankara or karta. The word ego must be understood well because there are a number of problems associated with its general use. Here, ego means that individuality is agankara. Definition of ego. Ego is that which owns up to any type of activity. For example, when I say this is my sight. The one who owns up to the activity of seeing, that abhimana is that I see. I see my perception, my sight. The one who is the subject behind the action, seeing action, or behind hearing, tasting, smelling, thinking, or doing anything is what is meant by the karta or ego or agankara. To say that one should surrender one's ego to the Lord is a very common statement that is much too simplistic in terms of understanding what is meant by surrender. First of all, I don't know who or what the Lord is. Only when you know who the Lord is, and only you can surrender. And why should I surrender the only ego that I have to this Lord? As it is, I have only a few things, and these things are owned by this ego. If I surrender it to the Lord, then what will I get in return? Everything, I am told. The question then would arise, would be, if the ego is already surrendered, who will get everything? Everything who will get? Ego itself surrendered, then who will get? Once I have surrendered my ego, I become totally decimated, gone. Then who is there to get anything out of that surrender? Who is going to enjoy that everything what it gets? Who is that? Nobody. Therefore, that type of surrender is useless. Also, the next question comes: who is surrendering the ego? Does the ego surrender the ego, or the Atma surrenders the ego? Somebody has to do the surrendering. It is the ego that has to surrender itself. But that is not possible. Again, if I am wearing a coat, I can surrender the coat. I can hang it somewhere or put it on someone else's shoulder. Also, when I am the owner of the coat, it is easy to surrender it. If I am not the owner of the coat, I can ask you to take it, but I cannot surrender it because it doesn't belong to me. Similarly, I am told that Agankara, the ego, belongs to the Lord and that I must surrender it. How can I surrender that doesn't belong to me? I can only surrender that which belongs to me. And if it belongs to the Lord, obviously that I do not know this. In fact, I think that everything belongs to me, including the Lord. Why else would I address him as my Lord? To address the Lord, I must be there because I am here. He is the Lord. If I am not here, where is the Lord? He is the Lord because I call him Lord. And if there is a Lord, and this Lord includes everything, then I have nothing to surrender. I have only to know. Only knowledge is required. Furthermore, if I have to surrender to a Lord who is separate from me, then I am the ego. Because I am the surrenderer, and to whom I surrender, then there is ego. You are strengthening the ego by creating a distance between you and the Ishvara. Who then is to surrender this ego? The ego alone has to surrender. How can the ego surrender? The one who surrenders is the ego. It is like lifting yourself by yourself. Not possible. Physically lifting. And being the one who surrenders, the ego can only surrender when it owns. The owner cannot be surrendered. The ego has to surrender to the Lord. Something else must be there to surrender it, which can be only another ego. Because whomsoever owns up the act of surrender is the ego. The ego requires an ego, which requires yet another ego. Therefore, like the God question of God, this is infinite regression. Thus, we find ourselves in infinite regression. How then are we going to surrender our ego to the Lord? Surrender, therefore, is an attitude. It's a maturity. It's an attitude of maturity. a mature attitude. There is no surrender other than this. Surrender as such is not possible for the ego because it cannot surrender itself. The ego is sublated, the wake of jnana. Therefore, surrender as such is not possible for the ego because it cannot surrender itself. But with an attitude of surrender, I can deflate the ego. I can appreciate that there is nothing in this creation that is authored by me, that everything is given to me, including my physical body, mind, senses. I'm the trustee. I'm given. What is given to me is not mine. It is given. I'm using it. I have the privilege to use it. I don't have the privilege to abuse it. It's all given. When I say I'm just a trustee, oh Lord, and you are the giver. This is what surrendering is. This is the ego is what tell me all this. This surrender can be only in terms of attitude. Then how does one get rid of samsara? Only by getting rid of this ego, the karta. If surrender is not possible, then how does one get rid of the ego? In the name of getting rid of everything else, ego remains in one form or the other because it cannot get rid of itself. If it remains to say things like, I'm the most charitable person around, even a person who doesn't talk about his or her good actions may think of himself or herself as a humble person and say, I never mention all of the charities I have done. I don't boast about them. Ask anyone, and they will tell you that this is so. The ego knows very well how to sustain and perpetuate itself in so many ways. Because the ego, the karta, is always there in one form or the other. It cannot be defeated except by the one who undertakes an inquiry into who am I. So it have to come to jnana. That's where the real surrender takes place. Real sublation of ego takes place. A person can study every philosophy there is, and the ego will remain saying, I am a philosopher. Only when the question, who am I, is asked, is the ego in trouble. Why? Because the ego, the karta, is really an imposter, a superimposition. It's an imposter, it's a superimposition. There is no kartritvam, no doership, in fact, because it is mithya, dependent on atma. So beautiful. We will stop here. We will read negation by knowledge. Next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Dhanyavadah.